Hello again, Simon Jacobson, speaking here about the power and experience of love. This class is titled Heart to Heart, Growing Emotionally. To address the issue of love is one of the most difficult things because on one hand, it is the most vital component in life. No matter who you are, no matter what age, love is a necessity. Let's establish that. It's a necessity for our well-being, for our nurturing, the warmth, no different than water that is needed to plant and to allow things to grow. The same as love is water to our souls, to our psyches. And yet it remains completely elusive. Nobody has mastered, nobody has developed a formula, an algorithm. Here's how to love. Here's how to find love. Here's how to maintain love. Those that have been in love, that are in love, that have someone that they have found in their lives, know that it doesn't come easily. There's a process. It needs vitality. It needs continuous watering. It needs continuous growth. And it comes with pain, and it comes with challenges. Because you're dealing with two individuals who each on their own emotions are something that we don't always have control over. And then when you're dealing with another person, the vulnerability, the insecurities, and so on. Then there are people who spend a lifetime searching for that elusive love. There are those that have been heartbroken. I deliberately use that word because heartbroken, a broken heart, anyone who's experienced that knows the type of paralysis, the demoralization even, that it creates. But we're now in the month of Elul, the Hebrew month of Elul, whose acronym is Ani L'Dodi V'Dodi Li. I am to my beloved, and my beloved to me. Heart to heart. It's the month of love. It's the sign of Virgo. Psula in Hebrew. And as I've discussed last week and previous classes, and some of you may be aware of this, it's not just a sign, it's not just a time period, a random coincidental connection to love, but it's actually a period in time where Moses is up on the mountain trying to reconcile and trying to rebuild a love that was betrayed and broken. So this is a particular time. Time is energy, and Elul gives us the power to both examine, explore, and rediscover healthy love, but above all, and that will be the focus of this discussion, how to find and plumb the reservoirs, the powers of the heart, and discover new dimensions that you may never have seen or experienced before. So discuss this in somewhat of a less emotional way. Let me, in a sense, talk about it scientifically, if I may. I don't mean exactly scientifically, but as more of an analysis. By comparison, sometimes you can appreciate an idea in a much more powerful way. One of the ways to appreciate or understand our hearts, is by looking at our minds. So let's do a side-by-side study of the mind and the heart. Now, of course, there are many dimensions to each, but I'm focusing on the two words that I will use, the two adjectives. For the mind, I will use the word reflective, and for the heart, we'll use the word impulsive. So when you discuss intellect and emotion, we all have this hundreds and hundreds of times a day, the battle between mind and heart. You see something you like. You're seduced by something. Something tempts you. I don't mean healthy or unhealthy. It could be anything. It could be something that is beautiful. And you're drawn to it emotionally. But your mind tells you, now is not the time. This may not be right for you now. Or may not be healthy for you. But your heart really wants it. Your emotions really are drawn to it. It could be anything. It could be food. It could be a person. It could be an experience. It could be something that is instant gratification. Just put yourself in that situation. And what do you experience? You experience this type of conflict. Now, if we were able to step aside, freeze that moment, and just look at ourselves, then you would have two voices, two distinct voices. One is reflective, that's the mind. Maybe we should begin the other way around. One is impulsive. Your heart is telling you, go for it. If there was nothing to stop you, no brakes, no reflection, no discipline, no pause, you would just go for it. Children, for example, may grab something because that's sweet for them or looks good to them, and a parent will stop them from doing it because they're reacting emotionally. Then comes the reflective mind, and the reflective mind says, no, let's pause, let's reflect, let's see if this is the right thing for us. That's on a small level. On a bigger level, then many times we're just drawn to something and we devise plans how to get it. And we don't let our mind in necessary to reflect, or if we do, we want to hear a conclusion that was preset. Sometimes you talk to someone, you don't want really to hear an opinion. You want them to agree with you so you feel a little better about it. So if you freeze that moment, there are these two voices. So usually we think of the mind as the one organ or the one faculty inside of us that can grow and develop, precisely for this reason. Because the mind reflects. The mind is seen like a machine, like a computer. A computer, there are layers to it. We can acquire knowledge. We can grow intellectually. We can learn new things, as we do all the time. But emotionally, most of us would think, at least impulsively, no pun intended, that the heart does not grow. The heart is what it is, and it reacts emotionally and impulsively to things. Control that. You can reflect, but that's the heart itself on its left on its own is not something we can develop. You think it from the exercise. We can exercise many muscles in our bodies, but there are some muscles I think that you can't exercise. I didn't look into it, so maybe it's something to check up on. So maybe our circuit committee can look into, are there muscles that we cannot exercise? But definitely there are parts of the body that are not in direct control of our activities. And there are parts that are. So for example, you can't make your fingers grow longer. You can't make your eyeballs change shape. I'm talking about naturally, with the natural exercise. I'm not talking about some type of grotesque experiment. But you can grow intellectually. You can learn new ways, new methods. You can learn new approaches. And as we do grow in our lives, our experience and our knowledge helps us develop and expand our intellectual horizons. Like the famous line, when a man with experience meets a man with money, the man with the experience ends up with the money, and the man with the money ends up with experience. So experience teaches us how to maneuver, and actually teaches us also the follies or the challenges of impulsive buying or impulsive behavior. But when someone says, what about the heart? Is the heart an organ? Is it a faculty? Are emotions capable of growth? Or is it just dependent on the natural growth of maturity? Children are almost completely emotional. Their minds are there, but in a much lesser extent. But as we grow older, our emotions become tempered, become more under control of the mind, hopefully. And we become more balanced in that sense. But has the heart really grown? Well, let me rephrase that. The heart has grown, but is it grown due to our efforts? Or is it the natural process of maturity? Just like a child is born 5, 6, 7 pounds or more, that child will naturally grow to a certain place. Same thing with height. A child may be, let's say, a foot and a half long. As we grow older, we grow taller. But that's not in our control. That's genetic. We will grow a certain amount, and then we will stop. So does the heart fit into the category of the mind and intellectual horizons that can actually grow? Or does it fit into the category of certain factors that just naturally grow and are not up to our efforts? You cannot do anything to make yourself become taller, naturally. Now, when it comes to weight, all joking aside, obviously that is in our control. But there is also an element of weight that just an adult grows a certain weight simply due to eating. In that, there is a certain type of, latitude and spectrum of what is considered healthy weight or not. But I use height as a better example because height is completely not in our control. There's nothing you can eat, there's nothing you can do that make you grow taller or shorter. And even if there were, it would be some type of superimposed drug or medication. We're talking here naturally. So getting back to the heart and the mind, the argument can be made, the mind grows. There are people who have grown from 20 to 30 to 40 to 50. You can be 90 years old and still learn more things. It may be hard to learn new tricks, new methods, but you can potentially, and you can definitely grow with information, knowledge. It's like the mind is a bank. It's a hard drive. What about the heart? The emotions, are they pre-wired? Can we do some things to develop them? So clearly this setup type of question is meant to say that even though intuitively we may think that emotions cannot grow, we're here to discuss that they absolutely can. And this is very relevant to our lives. Because let's take a relationship. You're in a relationship, you love someone, they love you. But then you hit a snag, you hit a bump. Something happens, a crisis. One person betrays the other, one person hurts another. So yes, you can overlook it, you can allow your mind in and help find balance, but can your emotions actually grow? Let's say you made the mistake. Can you emotionally learn from that mistake, what we'll call emotional intelligence, and become more intelligent emotionally? Again, not that the mind is controlling and saying, don't just react impulsively, discipline or channel your emotions, but actual emotional development. Can this muscle called the heart, in this context I mean it metaphorically, can this muscle called emotions develop, grow, broaden its horizons? So it's extremely relevant, because if it cannot, let's think of the consequences. Then, in a way, when we get we get trapped or something happens and emotionally we're blocked, you really can't do anything. You can overlook it. You can allow the mind to come in and, so to speak, have its speak to you and control and discipline your life. But the emotions themselves will always remain in a certain way impossible to deal with. You're trapped by your parameters, like I said with the height. However, if emotions can actually be developed, and we can learn to exercise them, and we can learn methods, then it's a whole different story. Then the sky is the limit. Or maybe another way of putting it is this. The mind, as I said, has layers. Clearly there's an unconscious. Clearly there are potential that when we exert ourselves, we can access deeper potential intellectual depths. You see that all the time. Well, does the heart have dimensions? Can we dig and find something in the heart that was there, but we didn't access it till now? So that's another way of putting it. So of course the two options are that if your heart is like the height, your human height, then you can't. It is what it is. Once you mature, this is your emotional life. This is your emotional quotient of intelligence. Or there are things we can do that can actually reach deeper. Because there are deeper levels, and there are therefore things we can do to reach and access deeper levels of the heart. Which is, of course, what I'm going to be explaining, that is absolutely the case. So let us go back to the month of Elul and use that as a framework and use that as an example. So what do we have with the month of Elul? We have that ani l'dodi v'dodi li. There's a relationship between two entities. I am to my beloved, and my beloved is to me. So now the question is, this relationship, what does it consist of, and how does it work? Heart to heart. So let's begin with the simple thing that Moses is up on the mountain. He's speaking to God, obviously very heartfelt fully. And he's appealing to him, beseeching God, please do something. Don't allow this break, this true betrayal, and it was a real betrayal, to destroy the relationship. So there, right there, the heart has a tool that the mind doesn't have. The ability to appeal, to yearn, to express something that touches us. So though God, we can't use anthropomorphism, but he was clearly touched. How do we say God was touched? Well, let's think of it as God manifests in the 10 spheres. Godliness manifests in the structure of existence, in the cosmic order. So there's chesed, there's gevura, there are also divine emotions that can be touched. But to get back to us, let's talk about, as it would be an example of two humans. The Torah says when Moses spoke with God, it was as if a person was speaking to his friend. And the conversation is very intimate. A healthy type of communication, where one person has hurt another, or is speaking about others who have hurt him, and appealing emotionally, please. Now we all know emotions can appeal to us. What do emotions have that the mind doesn't have? The mind is a cold machine. For all its strength that I mentioned, for all its capacity of growth, for all its depths, for all its control and reflection, it doesn't have the power to appeal, because it's just cold facts. So its strengths are also its weakness. The heart, on the other hand, is an appealing element. And we've all experienced it. Who has not been touched in some way by a child, by someone coming to you in a really heartfelt way, sincere way? So that's one tool that the heart has that we shall explore further. And let's use the expression from Rabbeinu Tam, one of the great middle-aged sages and scholars, a grandson of Rashi, the classic Rashi, commentary on the Torah, as well as, and that quote from the Rabbeinu Tam is cited in the Shalah HaKadosh, the Shalah, Rabbi Yitzchak Horowitz, 16th, 17th century great sage and mystic that I have often cited and quoted here. Dvarim hayetzim min halev nichnasim min halev. Words that come out of the heart enter the heart, heart to heart. Which of course suggests that words that don't come out of the heart, that come out of the mouth, the brain, enter perhaps one ear and go out the other, or maybe don't even enter in the first place. What is the power of words from the heart? The power of an emotion is like the book of the Mishlei says, "Kimayim aponim laponim, kein lev ha'adam la'adam." As a face is reflected in water, so too one heart is reflected in another. You don't say that on the moyach, on the mind. You don't say just as a face is reflected in water, one mind is reflected in another. Absolutely not. Minds work very differently. Ein deis shein shavis, the Talmud tells us. Two people don't think alike. Just like they don't have the similar faces, they don't have similar personalities, they don't think alike. I mean, we say great minds think alike. Of course, there are parallels. There are people who have a certain way of looking at things and others look at the same way. There's a certain measure of intelligence. But generally speaking, we each have a unique element of how our minds work. When it comes to hearts, on the other hand, we have words from the heart enter the heart. This doesn't mean that hearts are exactly alike. That's not what I'm suggesting. But it's an ability to somewhat transcend that type of difference and actually reach into a heart. Like water reflects a face. So a heart has the ability to reach into a person. And when it comes from sincerity, you can reach deeper and actually have that person change their attitude to you or to others. You can abate anger. You can change the mood. You can cause someone to smile who is very bitter. Is it automatic? No. When it says words from the heart enter the heart, obviously if the other person's heart is completely closed or doesn't want to listen, it's not just going to work like that. But it's like knocking on a door. Sometimes you knock once, you knock twice, you knock a third time. And at some point, the door opens. Chayil doidi doifik. The voice of my beloved knocks. Voice of my beloved knocking on the door. Doifik. Pischuli. Open for me up. Open up the door. That's how a heart appeals. So that's one element of a heart which we shall soon explore further. Another element of a heart is its softness, its gentleness, tenderness. Someone just uses their mind. As I mentioned, it's a cold type of communication. It may be justified. It may have its own natural, so-called gentleness as well, but it's not gentle by nature. It's cold facts. Here's the information. Here's the data. A heart has softness to it. You can see two people communicating the same idea. One just tells you the rigid facts in a very unemotional, what's the word I'm looking for? Unbiased, depersonalized way. And another person shares and communicates the same idea with heart. Who is going to reach more people? Who will reach you? Who will reach me? obviously the one that says it in a heartfelt way, because you feel it. You feel a certain softness. So in addition to the fact that words of the heart enter the heart, well, you can explain that one of the reasons for that is because of the softness of it, is that emotions just by nature, when we conjure up, we close our eyes and think of emotions, we think of them like, some people say clouds, some will say water, something that's encompassing, something that's soft, something that is nurturing. When we talk about the mind, what will conjure up will be more a type of, maybe a mountain, maybe a mathematical equation, something that is more defined, structured, very clear, and very focused, but it doesn't have the soft gentleness of it. So how then, based on this, on these powers of the heart, how then does a person expand, and how can they actually grow emotionally? So I once had a situation, a couple came to see me, and he was a mind, powerful mind, brilliant. Fine guy, a nice guy, but he lived in his head mostly. The woman was worked by emotions, also intelligent, but her general modus operandi was an emotional one. His was an intellectual one, which means he was much more guarded, less spontaneous, much more controlled. Everything was calculated. He didn't let his heart come out that well, that fast, and also that well. The woman, on the other hand, much more instinctive, intuitive, made emotional decisions, made her mistakes, less calculated, less reflective. And per se, two people in a relationship, they love each other. It actually can complement one another. As I said, they both had emotions and heart. It's just a question of which was their primary tool. But then, of course, something happened. They had a crisis. Without going into the details, they came to see me. I knew them, but now I got to know them a little more. Crisis brings out the best and the worst. And clearly, the two tools that can often complement each other were clashing. He was using his calculations. He may have been right on paper, but she would say it just doesn't feel right. So their relationship now was trapped because her heart was looking for sincerity, for purity, for reaching a deeper place in this relationship. He was countering that with an illogical approach, and logic and heart, mind and heart, when they don't meet, they really not only don't meet, they don't speak to each other. Think of times of, God forbid, loss. Can a brilliant mind speak to a crying heart? Can a powerful intellect speak to a bleeding emotion? It doesn't work. And that's more or less what was happening here. So it forced me, and they were really sincere and wanted to work this out. It wasn't like trapped in their egos, but they were trapped in their tools. And of course, ego is always a factor. And they were really willing to hear a new approach. And we started looking at these tools that they use. And I told him there's no way this is going to be really resolved, at least long term, not a Band-Aid, if he does not develop something in his emotions, and if she does not work on bringing the mind in to some extent. In other words, my point was not that he has to completely defer to her and she to him, but they both have to learn to appreciate the other tool. So let's talk more about, obviously, what I discussed with him. But they helped each other because they loved each other. They just were really trapped in different types of tools. Her emotional abilities helped him develop that part of himself. And it came down to sometimes you just have to put the mind aside. Not obviously in dangerous situations or where you need to really review something, but with someone you love. And just speak words from the heart. And just be sincere and be gentle and tender. And when you do that, what happens is a new dimension in you opens up, and you will open up a new dimension in another. In other words, when Moses actually reached God, it wasn't just he was reaching deeper into God, he was reaching deeper into himself. Words from the heart enter the heart. He was reaching deeper into his own words from the heart, his own heart. And therefore it pierced and was able to even pierce the resistance of God, resisting naturally and also appropriately due to the betrayal, but due to the building of the golden calf. But the question is now, that's the method. That's the approach. You want to reach deeper. But how do you reach deeper when emotionally you're blocked? Or emotionally, as I said earlier, maybe You've just reached your max and you don't know whether you can go dig deeper. So there are two tools. Interestingly, these two tools I mentioned around developing intellectually, I've never seen them mentioned emotionally, but I do believe that the same can be applied. And I may have to look this up and see if I can find an actual source for it. And that is the two methods to develop intellectually. One is exertion, working hard at something. Let's say you're struggling with an idea and not giving up, but allowing that idea to challenge you. So you dig deeper, you strike the rock, and you release new energy out of it. Same thing, you strike the mind with exertion, with effort, with hard work, doing it over again and again, the thing we most loathe, and you extract new, deeper ideas. And the second tool is bittul, that famous concept called bittul that I've discussed so many times. What is bittul? Bittul is a combination of humility, modesty, not allowing yourself to get in the way. Bittul allows you to think in a deeper way, think more objectively. Because it's not like, okay, I already got the idea, I figured it out, my ego is satisfied. Bittul says, no, I need to go further because I'm looking for the truth. In other words, intellect with bittul is saying, I want to know what the truth is. The truth is more important than I. Intellect without bittul is saying, I understand is more important than the concept being understood. So now let's apply those two tools to the emotions. The emotions too, and I would say even more so than the intellect, because the intellect by nature is a bittul, is a modest experience. What do I mean by that? Any intelligent person knows that you need to put your ego and your interests aside if you want to grow intellectually. Because you need to open up new horizons. You can't allow your self-interest to get in the way. But emotions are all about self-interest. They're all about me, my feelings about something. They're not just, is this true or is it not true? Is this fact correct or not? The emotions are my feelings about it. So in that sense, it's driven by self-interest. So how there can we exercise bittul? But here comes the power of love. The power of love is that when you love somebody, you're not just loving because you're getting something from them. As I've discussed many times, love is not just about taking. It's not just about needs. It doesn't begin and end with needs. Obviously, needs are being fulfilled in love. But love is about the ability of a human being to transcend themselves and experience another. I'll repeat that again. It's not about you becoming more of you, getting filled with love. But it's about you being able to transcend yourself and experience another. Which of course opens you up not just to another, but to so many other things. So love in a certain powerful way, even though it's an emotional force, it really is about transcending yourself. And that's the secret that has been lost, especially in our modern times. Love has become another commodity, another thing you acquire. That ability of recognizing it's about transcendence. It's not about me, me, me. In return, you get that emotional nurturing that you need. And you also give that emotional force to others that you love. That is an element of bittul. It's a type of awe of something beyond yourself. Now, if you go with that approach, and you really love the other person, then what will happen is you will not allow your immediate impulses to control. So let's just analyze that a bit further. I mentioned before that the reflective mind can control an impulsive heart. So that may be part of this process, but it's more than that. It's also the heart, because it loves and it cares for another, has the capacity to, for a moment, shed its own self-interest. And the name of love, not in the name of the intellect telling the love what to do, the name of love, caring. Look at a mother or father getting up at night, feeding a child. It's not just their mind tells them, listen, even though you're tired. That's part of it. It's also because they love the child. If there was no love there, the mind would not necessarily be the one telling. They could say, someone else can do it. Well, you know what? The child won't die from hunger, God forbid. But because our heart goes out to someone we love, we in a way have the capacity to put aside our immediate interest. Moshe Rabbeinu, Moses, was on the mountain. He was not part of the crime of building of the golden calf, but his heart ached. He was hurt. He's seen what had happened, how this rift After all the Jewish people had gone through, now there was this schism. And as a result, being part of course, of the people, he reached deeper into his heart and cried. He cried out emotionally. He cried to God and said, I want this to be repaired. At the end, Yom Kippur, God finally gives in. But in this month of Elul is when he's doing the intense crying. Crying in a beautiful way. Ani lidodi v'dodi li. I am to my beloved and my beloved to me. And in this reaching, in this yearning, he reached deeper levels into his own heart out of love. That's what love can do. So let's now go back to the two models. If love is basically driven purely by me, and there's no bittul, we'll soon talk about the exertion, the second part, there's no bittul, then what happens is when there's a crisis and there's a bump, then my comfort zone or my way of looking at things will not allow me to transcend my emotions. And what happens then is two people get stuck and trapped. Each one thinks they got it figured out. The other one doesn't know. They may pay lip service and say, listen, we're both not perfect, but ultimately, deep inside, or not even so deep inside, they feel that they're not at fault, and their emotions have gotten the better of them. Go back to the case study I was mentioning. That guy, had he not really loved his wife, he could have easily gotten into and said, listen, on paper, this is the way to do it, and if you don't get it, grow and go figure it out. Because he cared, because he was gentle, because he wanted to have a relationship with her, he wanted to fix whatever was broken between them. That heart allowed him to allow himself to feel in a new way. So there's a real consequence of whether we expand our emotional horizons or not, as I said earlier. And so bittul allows you to expand the horizon by, doing? By introducing the ingredient of humility in the love. So there's also this chesed, but now there's the hoid shebe chesed, the humility within love. The ability to introduce humility not just in the intellectual pursuit of finding an objective conclusion, but it's also now humility that is helping you massage and helping you dig deeper and allow yourself to experience something new emotionally, not to get stuck and say, this is the way I see it, this is the way I feel it. How can I tell you, how often is it that I sit with people with all their issues and troubles and challenges? One of the biggest problems is they simply will not go beyond their own parameters. They see it a certain way, and that's it. And you can't, shrive chai v'kayim, they say in Yiddish, and it won't help. You try to break down walls, you want to pull your hair out. They're convinced this is the way it is. And they're not even being malicious. They have just trapped themselves into their own heart, and they're not allowing a new tool to come into play, the tool of bittul. So that's why you see people can truly love one another. But if they don't have that emotional maturity, that emotional intelligence, that love can also be their undoing. Because they love, but they love in their way. They don't know about loving another way. Now, obviously, you can't change colors. You can't change your stripes and your spots like that, or forever, ever. We all have our emotional structures. So obviously, to go ahead and try to superimpose, or with a sledgehammer, battering ram, come in and say, let's change our emotion. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about allowing the emotions to become softer, to allow them to see things in a little different way. And when you really love someone and you're secure about it, it's not just about control, then your heart has that capacity. And the second element is exertion, is work. Just like the mind will not produce better and greater ideas without some type of challenge, without some type of competition, without some type of provocation, the heart too needs to be challenged. The lost art of prayer, actually, a topic I always would love to be able to explore for my own life and for other people's lives as well, is the effort of growing emotionally. It has both elements, actually. The bittul to sit with a prayer book is not sitting with a Hasidic discourse or a Talmudic exchange. It's about emotionally connecting to something, having the humility to sit and emote, learn to communicate with God. And it takes effort, it takes work. Not the same type of work of breaking your head over a piece of a Gemara or over a mathematical equation, over any type of concept or idea or theory. But it takes work, because the work is that we want to get beyond our previous emotional parameters. So two people in a relationship, going back to that example, they needed to make time, which was not natural to them. They were both very busy. They needed to make time every day, a half hour, an hour, where they would just communicate. So in addition to the bittul, in addition to just not allowing yourself to be trapped, I see it this way and that's it, really opening yourself up to another possibility. In addition, simply designating time, doing something with effort, taking effort to actually develop that. So to go back to prayer, prayer is an effort where you really do it alone. You don't pray with someone else. Two people don't pray together. I mean, we may pray together in a synagogue, but we're not praying with each other, like learning with one another. It's the synergy of many individuals. Prayer is a very personal thing. It's you and your heart. It's you and your soul. It's you and God. Which is what Moses did actually during the month of Elul, which is why we add additional prayers. At the end of that month, we'll add slichot. The Ashkenazim, Sfarim begin to say an additional prayer, slichot, at the beginning of the month of Elul. We add things, we become more introspective emotionally as we prepare for the high holidays. But as Moses did, he was actually praying. But praying is not what we think it is. Praying, many of us think in terms of a one-way street. God is there, you pray to God, help me, save me, fill my needs. No, praying is a moding. Ezuhu aveda shebalev, zuhi tefillah. Again, lev. What is the service of the heart? That's prayer. Prayer is learning to express your emotions. Now, of course, you need to be in a trusting environment to do so, but it takes work to express yourself. And not just the work of learning the words, how do I communicate what I feel, the will to want to communicate what you feel, the strength, the courage to communicate to those that you need to communicate. And communication here doesn't just mean speaking. Communication means expressing. Because after all, what is exercise? Our muscles are intact even if we don't exercise. But if you want to actualize their potential, if you want to tap into their potential and tap into layers of their strengths, you need exercise. Exercise, the exertion, works it out, like you would work out anything, like exertion of the mind. Exertion of the heart is effort, is continuous effort, not to take for granted your situation, your emotional situation. So what happened with that couple? That couple began to work on themselves, spend time. I'm speaking about his end. I'll tell you a moment about her end. He began to do two things. His love allowed him to have the bittul, the modesty, the humility, to allow himself to hear a different way to emote, which in turn allowed him to emote in a new way. Still remained, his primary tool still remained his mind. And the second thing, the exertion, the effort that this came with. And through the effort, he was able to access a deeper dimension of his heart. In her situation, her thing was not to just react emotionally to everything. Meaning that her emotions tell her, and she was smart, as I said. Her mind understood, but she would gravitate back to her emotions. She says, I understand, but emotionally I just can't handle this. I cannot handle his coldness. I can't handle his detachment, his ability to just go off and compartmentalize. So she needed to work on her heart, also her heart not controlling it all. And basically saying, look, he's a person I love, and he has a different way of doing things. He's not telling me to do it differently. I can't tell him to do it differently. But interesting, both of them did expand, and I must say, which isn't always doesn't always have a happy ending. Here was a very happy ending. Obviously, because they had the ingredients that connected them. They didn't allow their discomfort and their breakdown to destroy. They stemmed the tide, they stopped the bleeding, and they began to work. And it still works. It doesn't always mean it figures out. There are times they have major arguments. But who doesn't in love? They say if you don't argue, it's a bad sign. So argue means there's a difference of opinion. They're both communicating. When you don't argue, it also means maybe one person's just deferring all the time, or one person is silencing themselves. So there's that element of engagement that love has, but that's not really the point of this discussion. Even though Moses, of course, argued with God as well. So I want to go back now to the softness that I was talking about. Words from the heart enter the heart. When you really want something, when you really care about something, when you really love somebody, there is a way to go deeper into yourself. You see that sometimes you don't get what you want. So you can have a tantrum, you can get angry, upset, run out. Or you may say to yourself, you know what, let me find maybe a better way to communicate this. You dig deeper and you speak in a more heartfelt way. I have this, I can't say quite often, but once in a while, speaking to an audience. And you're trying to communicate from your heart, trying to be sincere, trying to share. Besides the ideas, you want to speak about it in a way that people can relate to. And you have to go out of yourself because you're here, have the vibes of the room, you're looking, thinking, what do other people need? Not just what do you have to say. Sometimes you just I fall back on my own words, on ideas I've already expressed, and I feel it's certain hollowness. So you can just stick to your script and say, okay, you know what, doesn't always work. Automatic pilot, you get away with it. Sometimes people don't even notice. I don't know if that's true, but you can convince yourself of that. Or you dig deeper. You try something new. And I do this now all the time. I adjust all the time when I speak. If I feel I'm not reaching, if I feel my own words coming out that are hollow, I will change my course. I remember years ago, maybe one of the first public lectures I've given. So I was giving this class for many years, but it was informal. It had a certain informality, spontaneity. We were able to sit and talk. It wasn't, but there was one talk I gave. They asked me to speak about a certain topic. I structured it. I planned it. It was early in my career, so to speak. And I began to speak to this group of women. They gave me 40 minutes because they had to go elsewhere. They had a schedule. And I felt I could do it. And we started the 40 minutes. And after maybe 3 minutes of my conversation, of my delivery actually, I did not like what I was hearing. Not the ideas. I didn't like how it was coming across. I felt it was metallic. Metallic. It felt inanimate. This is what I did. All the research. I put it all aside, everything I planned to say, and I just said, ladies, it was a group of women in Manhattan. I said, you know, I had some prepared notes, some prepared thoughts I was going to share with you. Let me just speak to you from my heart, what it was like to experience certain things. And since then, in a way, that was a breakthrough. Now, it took some courage. It wasn't that easy because I had to wing it. Now, one couldn't just go back to my memory and say, okay, what were you going to say? Point 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, did you miss something? And so on. It wasn't contrived. It came from the heart. And what happened? The 40 minutes turned into almost 2 hours. After 40 minutes, I ended. But they insisted they had some questions, and they insisted I continue. Because a connection was made. I had to dig deeper into my own resources. And my mind, of course, agreed as well. Even though, of course, the mind could say, listen, this is what you have on paper. It's a good presentation. Doesn't sound so good to you, so be it. Who knows what they'll think. Maybe they'll like it. But I didn't feel my heart was there. And therefore, I dug deeper. And I communicated completely differently. And I saw how they were looking at me differently. And it was coming out right. Was it perfect? Nothing is perfect. But I learned the art of digging deeper into your heart and communicating. You want to reach someone you love. The first initial reaction we have is something's wrong with them. They don't hear me. How do I fix that other person? You don't first think, how do I dig deeper and communicate in a better way? Because we usually don't apply bittul. We're not thinking what's good for it. We're thinking what's good for me. And what's good for me is I'm saying what I want to say. That person doesn't get it. What's the matter with you? You want to wring their neck or shake them or get somebody else to explain it to them. They may not be completely getting it. But you have to do something about it, which is digging deeper, which requires the bittul and the exertion. To dig deeper means you're going to exert. You have to work harder. It's not the plan that you had. It's not the script. You have to take now a new script or new methods. And it requires bittul, the will to do so, the readiness to be prepared to just not do it your way. Now imagine two people in a relationship, both applying those elements. You're going to have a very good relationship because one person is doing it, the other one's doing it, and they meet that way. Now, of course, if only one does it, the other doesn't, it still can work if people really care. But it's healthier, obviously, if two people are doing it together. So Moses was up on the mountain for 40 days. As we've discussed many times, the first 40 days he received the Torah. The second 40 days he asked for forgiveness. But it says it was Yimei Kas. It was days of wrath. God did not respond. It was difficult for him. It was during the 3 weeks, the 9 days. Then the final 40 days, Elul, beginning Rosh Chodesh El, going to Yom Kippur, is when he finally broke through. And we've talked many times about those middle 40 days. What was going on? What was going on was a situation where he was getting no for an answer, but causing him to dig deeper. Now, I'm not getting now into God's intentions, was he saying no intentionally, but clearly Moses was not getting through. So he had to dig deeper. He dug deeper, and Elul was born. The 13 attributes of divine mercy, the Yud Gimel Midas Harachem, that is the essence of what Elul is, the revelation of that 13 attributes, to the point that the Alter Rebbe, Rabbi Shneur Zalman, that I cited last week, Melech Besada, the king is in the field. In the workday, in the weekday of Elul, we experience the power of a holiday. But it's not a holiday. It's because the king is where we are. This revelation of Elul came as a result of Moses digging deeper. And then saying to God, Hareini nachvedecha, show me your honor, show me your glory, show me your dignity, show me your face. Why did Moses not ask to see God's face before the building of the golden calf? He was there for 40 days and 40 nights, standing with God, praying, studying the Torah, receiving the Torah. Why didn't he ask, show me your face? And God responded, no one can see my face and live. Did he not want to see God's face? Because there was no challenge. Things were going well. And Moses was definitely digging deeper and studying the Torah, the mind of the Torah. But the heart of the Torah, that was revealed in Elul. And it consummates and concludes on Yom Kippur, and we celebrate it on Sukkot. So the mind was given on Shavuos, and Yom Kippur was given the heart of the Torah. The second tablets, the ones that came through Moses' bittul and deep effort of reaching a deeper place in himself and in God. So the second tablets were hard, very hard earned, much harder than the first tablets. Just to use a comparison, we read in the second chapter in the book of Exodus. So the end of the book, the end of the first chapter, it says that Moses, that accusatory thing, points an accusatory finger to God and says, Lama hiroisa la'am hazeh. Why are you doing evil, cruelty to this nation? When he sees how Pharaoh is oppressing them. And then when Moses came to Pharaoh, Pharaoh only added in the oppression. Moses doesn't blame Pharaoh, he blames God. To the point where God says, Chaval the Avdin delei mishtachim, too bad on those that we lost, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, who never challenged me like you, Moses, did. In a way, it was chutzpah. He was challenging God and saying, why are you doing evil to these people? So what do you think God's response was? You'd think he would punish him or definitely ignore him. He's not come to the level of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, who never challenged God that way. We read the second chapter, and it starts off that he appears to Moses as he appeared it says Ve'era el avis. Rashi says there that Moses, God is saying, I appeared to them, but Shmi Havaya lo nadaiti lehem. I did not reveal to them my name Havaya, the tetragrammaton, Yud Kei Vav Kei. I only appeared to them by El Havaya with the Keil Shaddai, with the name Keil Shaddai. As the commentaries explain and elaborate upon in Kabbalah and Chassidus, Keil Shaddai is a divine emanation. Keil, Chesed, love, but Shaddai in a form of Dai. Dai means with parameters, enough. It may be very wide parameters, very broad parameters, very deep parameters, but it's still with some limitation. But to you, Moses, I will reveal myself, I will reveal the Shem Havaya. What is going on? What's the Shem Havaya? The Shem Havaya is what we call the essential name, the one that expresses most God's divine essence. It's not the essence, it's still a name, but it is the Yud Ke Vav Ke, the secret of the 4 steps of Yud, the beginning of every process. Hey, the expansion, Vav, the transmission, and Hey, the reception. The entire cosmic order, every world has a Yud Ke Vav Ke. Chachma is usually the Yud, Hey is Bina, Vav is Zah, or the Midot, the emotions, transmission, like a line, the Vav. And the last Hey is Malchut. So the whole structure is based on, starts with a dot, the Yud, Chachma. Hey is the expansion of the Yud in Bina, all within the intellect. Vav is the emotional transmission, and Hey is the reception. This name I will reveal to you, and this reflects the divine essence. But this was all a result of what? Moses saying something which God says, Chaval da'avdin. It's so sad that you're not so receptive, so submissive, and accepting of me as the patriarchs. But what happened here? Similar to what happened in Yom Kippur, but on a lower level in a way. That patriarchs did not have to deal with 210 years of oppression of the Jewish people. Moses did. So he dug deeper and he demanded. That's why he said, challenge God. He says, you're sending me to redeem these people. I need to be able to do so with greater power and than anyone before, because the patriarchs lived relatively. They had their challenges, but they relatively did not have this darkness. I do have this. And God responds, you dig deeper, I dig deeper. You reach into your heart, I reach into my heart, and I give you the Yud Ke Vav Ke. That's one name, Havaya. But the Yud Gimel Midas Harachim, the 13, Kale, and the whole 13 attributes of compassion, that came later, after they received the Torah, after they built the golden calf, and Moses had to dig even deeper. Now show me your face. Which also explains an interesting paradox or interesting contrast. When God first appears to Moses in the burning bush, we're told that he turned his face away, covered his face. And later, he says to God, I want to see your face. So the Talmud says, an interesting thing, actually, in a way of saying, a strange, bizarre statement. When Moses asked to see God's face, God says to him, when I wanted to show you my face, you turned away, you covered your face by the burning bush. And now you want to see my face? Now, when you want, I won't show it to you. What's going on here? What is God is getting even? Tit for tat? Is this a game? God forbid. The answer is different stages. Then too, there was suffering. The Jews were in Egypt, and that's why God appeared in a burning bush, not in an apple tree or in a beautiful, another beautiful type of tree. And he revealed high dimensions, but Moses had not yet gone to the lowest and the darkest part that would come much later. So at that point, Moses was humble, did not want to see God's face. He stood in humility, didn't feel the need to. On the contrary, felt inappropriate. He felt inadequate to be able to see God's face. So he covered his face, like we do when we see a lot of light. In humility. But later, the people had built a golden calf, and now it was coming down. It was time to, it was like the 11th hour, and God was saying, this is it. The betrayal happened. Far, far lower descent in a way, even though Egypt was a very difficult challenge, but that was not imposed upon, that was not initiated by the people. That was Pharaoh and the Egyptians oppressing them. Now they built a golden calf. They betrayed God after they received the Torah. Here Moses and his love for God, and his love for the people, and his love for God and the people, dug even deeper. And here he began to cry. He said, I want to see your face. His humility that earlier covered his face, now his humility dictated, we have to see the face. It wasn't a selfish thing, I want to see your face for me. I need to see your essence. I need to reach into the deepest part of your love for me, for the people, for yourself, for your destiny, for the purpose of existence. So God says to him, when I wanted to show you my face, you didn't want to see. Now I'm not going to show it to you. That was not a punishment. He was actually explaining what's going on. He said, when I wanted to show it to you, you didn't want to see. It wasn't about you. That's why you didn't want to see it. Now too, for you to be able to see it, you cannot look directly and see me, because no one can see me and live. You want to see my face? You want to have the expression of my divine essence? This is the way. Do not look. Don't ask. You just do what you have to do. Close your eyes, and I will show it to you without you looking. As I've explained from the Panim Yafis, when it says, I will show you my back, but my face you will not see. Why did God have to rub it in and add? He already said, no man can see me and live. Why does he have to add, on my face you will not see? Because the way you read it is, I will show you my back and my face, but my face you will see by not looking. So God was revealing to Moses the secret. Now that you want, now that it's about that you're asking me, you have to remember it's not about you. But Moses' intention was never that it was not about him in the first place. But God was explaining it, that it's not through you that you'll see it. It's not through your being, it'll be through your bittul. And all of this required profound exertion. So just like the Havaya was revealed through darkness and through Moses reaching deeper and even with chutzpah, so too the 13 attributes that are revealed. Havaya actually, double Havaya. I think I correct myself. That there's the two Havayas in the beginning of the 13 attributes. In my book, 60 Days, I have in the notes there the different ways we count the 13 attributes. It's now not one Havaya, but double Havaya. So by Matan Torah, when he received the law, he received the Torah, he did not ask to see the face. He was getting great revelations, but the face not. The face emerges when he goes deeper. And then think of it, when you ask your beloved, show me your face, in a moment of deep intimacy, deep love, meaning you're reaching out to the other person. So you see that they are upset at you. You see that some betrayal took place, and you now are reaching deeper and saying, show me your face. Are they going to show you their face then? They're angry at you. They're upset. But something happens when you ask that, if it's sincere. They do reveal it to you, but they reveal it to you not on your terms. You'll see real people who love each other, and when a person makes a mistake and goes to the other with sincerity and reaches, initially they're going to say no. Even when they begin to melt and they begin to open up, words from the heart enter the heart. Not as a game, not deliberately. It's just to reconnect will require you being completely not yourself. If you allow your not wanting to look at it and see it, you say, show me your face, meaning show me your essence. Show me the place where we really love each other, that transcends everything that we've hurt each other. That's not going to come with an easy response. Say, okay, here's my face, and now we're all fine. Let's hug and kiss and make up. No. It comes because it came through a break. The seeing of the face, just like your request is to see that deeper place, the response is also a deeper place, but it's not about me, you seeing it. You cannot see me, is what the beloved says to you, and live. You cannot see that place that transcends our love after what we've broken directly. The only way you can see it is indirectly. So it's not a punishment. It's not a tit for tat thing. It's not saying, you know what, yes, but it can't be on your terms. It's actually identifying the reality of the situation. So when things are healthy in a loving relationship, writing, you may not have to go to that place, show me your face. But you also may not have to shed that last part of your ego, that last part of self. You may not have to exert yourself to reach that depth. But when there's a break, you need to reach into that face. You need to reach into the essence, the most intimate part of the person you love. But you also have to do that, to go there. You have to also break yourself. So in a way, because of the broken relationship, you have to break your ego even further. to be able to get to a deeper place that transcends the entire break. That's the story behind the story. So all this was not when Moses first saw the burning bush. Then it was relatively to the later level. Humility and awe don't want to look at God's face. What did God want to show him then? Probably wanted to show him a deeper dimension of love. But Moses wasn't ready. Now when Moses was ready and needed it, now to go there, it can't be on your terms. How would it have been had Moses not covered his face then and seen God? I don't know if it would have been on his terms, but it probably also would not have been the essence of the face, and probably also a little bit on his terms. So what do we come away with all this? Is that the mind can expand in great ways. But what it cannot do is reach this essence. So interestingly, the heart, with all its subjective limitations I hopefully eloquently described earlier, I meant it more like pontificating about it, it has a power that the mind doesn't have. The love has an element of bittul. Even though intellect is more bittul because concept, thinking, intellectualizing, ideas require going out of yourself and going into the idea, not to you, but emotions, because of their heartfeltness. And the love allows you to go beyond yourself if you really want to. And when you do that, you reach the essence that the mind can't even reach. So the mind of the Torah was revealed the first 40 days. The heart was the next 80 days. Those 80, the first 40 was rejection and saying no. And the last 40 was Elul, where the yes begins, and the reconciliation, getting closer. And every day of Elul is a process in this growth. So think of Elul as an unbelievable opportunity to dig into your deepest heart, into the deepest resources you probably have never seen before. And every day you can grow, all the way culminating through the month of the Rosh Hashanah, culminating Yom Kippur, the high point, the deepest emotional point where we connect to God, the essence, and Yom Kippur, and especially the fifth prayer of Yom Kippur, Ne'ilah, Yechida, Yochid liyardecha, Yechida liyardecha, when the two hearts melt into one. When we stand at Ne'ilah, especially that last point before blowing the shofar, and we say Shema Yisrael, and then we say Baruch Shem 3 times, and 7 times Hashem Hu Elokim. So think of it, Shema Yisrael once, Echad, unity. Baruch Shem 3 times, the 3 intellect, Chachma Bina Das. And the 7 Hashem Hu Elokim, that Hashem, the transcendent, becomes the immanent, Elokim, nature. 7 times 7 emotions. Emotions is when our heart to heart, where the culmination of the emotional experience and growth of Elul comes to its peak, comes to its climax, comes to its highest point. And then we carry that in and celebrate it during Sukkot, in the celebration of Sukkot. How we apply that to our personal lives is, as I said, the process of digging deeper and finding that heart connection. And heart to heart, words from the heart enter the heart. So this is one of the reasons I composed the book 60 Days, which thank God has, I believe, had some impact, and hopefully even more. 60 Days is a workbook that is structured beginning from the first of Elul that began this week, going 60 days, 30 days of Elul, and then 30 days of Tishrei. Well, 20, but it's a total of 60 days in the journey into love, the journey into our own hearts, the journey to reach a place that's far deeper than we can ever imagine. If you're interested in receiving a daily 60-day meditation exercise, we send it out for free. Just contact us, go to our website, meaningfullife.com. You'll see 60 days right there, and just subscribe to it, and we'll be happy to send it to you. Or send us an email at wisdomreb@meaningfullife.com. And the book of obviously is also available, and I'd like to offer that to everyone. And above all, I'd like to conclude by saying, from my heart to your heart, our heart is an unbelievable tool. It's the most vulnerable one, the one that can be broken and can be hurt and can cry and bleed. But it's also one that can reach places, ani l'daidi v'daidi li, I am to my beloved and my beloved is to me, that nothing else in life can reach. So you have it right inside of you. You have it with all the recesses, with all the layers, and it's about exercising, exertion, and bittul that can help you dig deeper. Now, obviously, when you have a challenge in relationships or finding one, it may not be that easy to do on your own. That's why it's good to have a good friend, someone you trust that can work with you on this. But the discussion, this discussion here, has been one to try to focus on these tools, and above all, to give us the hope. You're not trapped emotionally. It's not just through cognitive life rafts and intellectual emancipation that you reach great places. It's also your heart allows you to go into depths and to reach a transcendence that you'd be surprised you're able to reach. So God bless you all and give you the power in this month of Elul. Time is energy. Let this month be your partner, be your asset, your ally in this glorious journey. And please see me and the Meaningful Life Center as resources, as allies as well in this journey. In any way we can help you. I don't want to compete with the month of Elul. Elul is the real resource of the ally, but we try to help it along as well, interpreting, applying. And if you have any thoughts, feelings, anything you'd like to share, they're always welcome. And if you haven't signed up in general, not just to the 60 days daily, but to the weekly emails that I send out, you're please welcome to do so. Again, at meaningfullife.com. And I want to wish everyone a very pleasant week. And we will resume next week, next Wednesday. And everyone should have a very loving week, a beloved week, a love, ani l'doidi v'doidi li week. I am to my beloved, and my beloved is to me. Be well.